All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. We are going to unpack exactly how India is actively building the fundamental systems of tomorrow. We're looking at a truly fascinating cross-section of developments from May 2026. We're going to cover everything from the deep legal frameworks that anchor the entire nation, to the digital apps you probably use every single day, right down to the human care networks specifically designed to protect the most vulnerable among us.
So here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, we'll look at the foundations of democracy. Number 2, transforming digital public infrastructure. And finally, number 3, advancing climate and care. Let's get into it.
Starting with Section 1, the foundations of democracy, focusing on constitutionalism and election governance. We're kicking things off by looking at the actual legal infrastructure of a democracy, specifically through the lens of a recent Supreme Court observation that really sets the stage for how a modern state is supposed to function.
Now think of constitutionalism as the ultimate, unbreakable rulebook. It's there to guarantee that absolutely no single entity, no matter how incredibly popular they might be, is above the law. It's an idea deeply rooted in principles like Article 14 of the Constitution, and that's the article that guarantees equality before the law and equal protection of laws for every single citizen.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, the contrast between constitutionalism and majoritarianism. Majoritarianism relies purely on the numerical majority to make collective decisions. Basically, whatever the biggest group wants, happens. But constitutionalism? It acts as a shield. It requires the courts to interpret laws in a way that actually protects fundamental rights, ensuring that governance reflects substantive equality, totally regardless of what the majority preference might be at that specific moment. And the judiciary has historically stepped in to preserve this exact balance. The most famous example is probably the 1973 Kesavananda Bharti ruling. That case cemented the basic structure doctrine. It basically acts as a definitive check on absolute legislative power. It means that certain core democratic principles, the very foundation the nation is built on, simply cannot be legislated away no matter what.
Okay, so let's ground this and see how it plays out in real-world governance by tracing the timeline of how India actually appoints its election commissioners. For decades, right after the 1991 Act, this was largely left up to executive discretion. But then, early in 2023, the Anut Barnwal Supreme Court case temporarily shifted this power to a committee that actually included the Chief Justice. And that directly leads us to the late 2023 Act, which completely redefined the entire process.
Breaking down that 2023 Act, we see a highly structured, multi-step process. First, a search committee shortlists 5 names, and then a selection committee makes the final call. This recent shift is a pretty major structural change because it formally involves the opposition in the selection process. However, and this is a crucial point, it still retains a level of executive discretion because legally, the selection committee is allowed to bypass that initial shortlist entirely if they decide to do so. All right, moving on to Section 2, transforming digital public infrastructure, or the tech backbone. Let's pivot from those foundational legal frameworks and explore the digital infrastructure that has quite literally rewired the Indian economy over the last decade.
10. That is a massive number for us today because it marks a full decade of transformation since the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, was launched back in 2016. In just 10 years, it went from this nascent kind of experimental idea to handling billions of transactions and becoming a true global leader in digital payments.
So you have to ask, how did that incredible growth happen? Well, they were absolutely laser-focused on the user experience. You get single app integration and instant transfers 24/7 to any bank account. When you combine that ease of use with advanced tools like automated recurring payments and super robust two-factor authentication, you end up with a system that is practically custom-built for massive, frictionless adoption.
And the quiet engine operating all of this? That's the National Payments Corporation of India, or the NPCI. It's an umbrella nonprofit organization that was established under the Payment and Settlement Systems Act of 2007. They're the brains behind not just UPI, but a whole suite of systems like IMPS, RuPay, and the Aadhaar-enabled payment system.
But wait, how did we even get to this point of massive digital adoption in the first place? It is all built on what's called the foundational JAM Trinity. You've got Jandan providing the financial inclusion, Aadhaar providing the digital identity, and mobile connectivity bringing the whole thing directly to the masses. This stack is absolutely crucial because it ensures these digital public goods remain non-excludable. They stay accessible to everyone, even the most marginalized communities.
The innovation definitely doesn't stop there, though. The global technological advantage is shifting fast.
And India's next frontier is taking this already massive digital infrastructure and integrating it directly with artificial intelligence. The ultimate goal here is to create a vernacular, population-scale AI model driven by domestic entrepreneurs. It's about ensuring this huge tech diffusion actually impacts the entire economy and does it in the languages people actually speak every day.
Okay, moving right along to Section 3, Advancing Climate and Care, Protecting the Vulnerable. For this final section, we're shifting our focus away from digital bits and bytes and into the physical world, looking at how new systems are being developed to protect our environment and our people.
Now here is a critical question for you. Can AI actually predict the monsoon? Indian agriculture relies so heavily on the monsoon, which prompted the India Meteorological Department to ask how we can use this cutting-edge technology to solve a problem of historical weather unpredictability.
To answer that, the IMD, working alongside institutes like the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune, developed two highly specific AI-driven systems. They're officially moving away from traditional models toward AI-enabled forecasting. This is starting with a national monsoon advance forecast and a really detailed, high spatial resolution pilot program for rainfall, specifically in Uttar Pradesh.
And what you really need to take away from this is the profound practical application. This isn't just neat data for scientists in a lab. By issuing these probabilistic forecasts every Wednesday, up to 4 weeks in advance, the system is giving farmers a massive 4-week window. That's a total game changer, allowing them to make informed agricultural decisions that could literally make or break their entire livelihoods. Transitioning over to social infrastructure, India's care economy initiatives form a very structured approach to supporting demographics across both ends of the human lifespan. For instance, you have the Atal Vayo Abhyuday Yojana, which cares for the elderly by providing residential and assistive support. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Palna Scheme and Poshan 2.0, which focus heavily on early childhood nutrition, education, and daycare.
Crucially, the government isn't just looking at this as welfare. They are treating care as a legitimate economic driver. They're actively building a highly skilled workforce for these roles. This includes domestic training through the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana and some really fascinating international partnerships like the Indo-Japan Technical Intern Training Program. In that one, Indian caregivers actually get on-the-job training in Japan's highly advanced elderly care sector.
So connecting all these threads together, we see that analyzing current affairs isn't just about memorizing a bunch of isolated events. It's really about observing the methodical construction of a nation's foundational infrastructure. The laws, the digital payment stacks, the AI weather grids, the social care frameworks, they are all deeply interconnected systems building the future.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. As technology continues to scale at an absolute population level, maintaining that constitutional balance we talked about at the very beginning becomes the ultimate challenge. How do we keep tech anchored in equality and justice? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it inspires you to look a bit deeper into how these frameworks are shaping the world around us. Catch you next time.